Welcome back to my budget app series, where I attempt to create a personal finance application from scratch and document the process on YouTube. In the last few videos, we've been working on the user interface React components, which we'll utilize to build the web client application. In this video, I'll wrap this effort with the last 3 components in the library, at least until we start working on the web client MVP in the series. These components will be the sidebar navigation, the main layout, and a reusable dropdown component which we'll use for the month switch, which is used to switch the budget period. Let's jump into the code and the designs, and I'll show you more specifically and explain in detail what we're gonna build and how we're gonna build it. Alright, so let's take a look at the designs. I have implemented in advance the sidebar navigation and the main layout because they are purely presentational in terms of components, and it will be a waste of time to type the CSS. I'll just explain it quickly. It's just a simple flex layout with backgrounds. Pretty much a few cover effects for the drop-down buttons. So let's go into these. I have my storybook of the BW UI repository linked in the description, and this is the sidebar navigation. You will notice I changed the design a bit, by the way. The logo is not black anymore, it's white gray, and the buttons are actually black. And on hover, they changed to the active cover, to the link cover of the application. I also changed the active state from this small indicator to a large background overlay, which indicates better that this is the active option. Also, the cursor is disabled here. All of these are button elements in HTML, and they are laid out with display flex. Let's take a look at the styles. The sidebar navigation is a couple of components, but I'll explain all of them right now. Essentially, the container is one component. We have a component for the buttons and one component that renders the logo with an inline SVG. Nothing special, just a static inline SVG. So this is the sidebar nav component. As you can see, it's just a div with a class name. That is sidebar nav. Let's open the SAS file. It has a width of 70 pixels fixed, as is in the design, and height of 100%. As you notice, that's because it's position fixed. I want it to always be to the left, always be 100% width and fixed. The content should be to the right and scrolling if needed. Now, the alignment of the flex container, it's a column container, of course. The items are top to bottom, and they are fixed on centered on the other axis, which is the horizontal axis in this case. This means the buttons are essentially centered on the horizontal axis and the logo. And of course, for the position fix, we have top left 0. The gap between the items is 1 rem. Let me inspect to show you that. Layout a bit. All right, that will be more visible. Here's the layout. These are the gaps that you can see. We also have padding top and bottom of 1 rem to balance the layout out like this. You could balance this to include the gap on top and bottom if you, I believe, use justify content space around. One note, as you can see, the user profile icon is aligned after all of the items right here. In the design, it's on the bottom. This will happen if I decide to do it with a Tailwind utility for margin top auto. I don't want to necessarily write this logic in the components library right now. Now, let's see how this is laid out. We have a sidebar nav, and it expects a couple of items to be inside of it because the actual nav is only a container with background and padding and spacing and the flex layout. The items that go inside of it are the logo, which if I open is just a simple presentational component with an SVG. Inline SVG, it has a class name, and that class name includes just the cover and display block. This cover should be a CSS variable, by the way, which I'll do right now. And the other component that we include are these buttons. These buttons are the sidebar nav button component. Here it is. It's just a button with a class name. And also we have our label and title. I'll talk about these accessibility properties a little bit in a bit. Let's go to the module. The button is display flex with centered layout on both axes. We want the icon in the center. That's pretty much understandable. The width, as you can see, is calculated. It's 100% minus 1m. This is the spacing on the left and the right accumulated, which we want to basically reserve for white space. And we also have the margin of 1m. We also maintain an aspect ratio of 1:1. So the width specifies the width of the box, and with aspect ratio, we make it a rectangle always. And then with flex, we center the icon inside of it because I want these nav buttons to always be rectangles. And finally, these are just reset styles for the button. We have a border radius of 10 pixels or the equivalent in rems. Oh, this should be rems. And a transition on the background. On hover, we have a certain style. We have an isActive style. I need to leave myself a reminder here to actually work focus and active states. We have an isActive that would also work for the, no, I don't know if the active state would work the same way. And the SVGs are display block. This is to avoid any height issues. But there shouldn't be height issues in a display flex container. Usually with an inline block SVG, you could have a small white space on the bottom. That's because the item is inline block, it's baseline. But when it's display block, it renders always with the correct width and height. That's why that style exists. So I'll leave myself this reminder to work on focus and active states because I need to design them as well. I haven't thought about a focus state on the buttons right now. I believe I actually have the default outline. I'll probably keep something like that with a more subtle style. All right, so why the area label and title? Well, obviously, if I open this here in the inspector, you see a button that is already rendered. This button has the button, HTML element, and only an SVG inside of it. The SVG has some title that is wallet icon, but you don't understand where the button is going. So we need an area label or a title or both to indicate what this link or button will do. And this is the budget view, so budget is appropriate in this case. And the title also has this nice property that it will show a tooltip. All right, so this is basically the sidebar navigation. Now, as you notice, it's fixed to the left. So we need a layout to accommodate that. That can be very simple. You can just add a container with some padding left, margin left, whatever. I've built a main layout component for extensibility purposes, which does exactly that. And it's a little bit too much in terms of elements. It's unnecessary right now. Let me show you. It has only two components actually, but I mean, it's overkill. This component does absolutely nothing, but does absolutely nothing yet. As you can see, it doesn't even have a class name. And the container is meant to go inside this main layout component. So we have main layout container. Let me show you the stories. This is main layout. All of these stories wrapped in the main layout component. And then we have the sidebar navigation and the main layout container. And that main layout container just has basic styles, display block with of 100% minus 70 pixels for the navigation and margin left. This can be simplified even more, and we don't need the main layout wrapper. As I mentioned, this is unnecessary right now, but I will need it for sure because I will have a mobile layout that scales differently, which I'm not considering right now. I will build later, but I'm considering it enough to build this. Yeah, that's my reasoning behind it. And the result is that we have a sidebar navigation and the content to the right of it with reserved space for the fixed sidebar. And this content will overflow and scroll appropriately. All right, so these are the static presentational components I needed. But in this video, I will build and primarily focus on this right here, which I recently added to the design. So this month switches the budget period, which is in my application always monthly. But we need the capability to switch the budget period, and that will happen with a simple drop-down for now. Later, we might extend it and do something more graphical, more interactive. But for now, a simple drop-down will do for the MVP, which will open on click. I need all accessibility features like keyboard navigation focus and an active state. Also, this component, I want it to be reusable, not coupled to this date switch. So it will be usable with an arbitrary any element. And this part will open basically on click interaction with that element. I want a onChange event on it, similar to the select, the native HTML select. And the input data, I think, will be JSON for now. I could go with separate React elements, another component, but JSON is pretty good for this because I just want plain text, label, and value. All right, so let's jump into the code and build the component. I'll start by making a folder called Dropdown, of course, and a Dropdown.js file. I'll copy one of the components, pagination, for example, for the boilerplate. I will include styles, props. It will have children. All right. Great. So the styles are drop down and the children go inside. So we have a wrapper, and here's my plan. The children will go inside a button element, which will be the button that opens the dropdown. So you will be able to add anything arbitrary in terms of content to that button element. And I will reset all styles on it so it doesn't have any styles. And essentially, I'll be able to insert this icon, label, and other chevron icon inside of the dropdown. The other part, the dropdown will be the actual dialog, model or panel or whatever you want to call it. In my case, I'll call it dropdown panel. That's fine. All right. This button will also have a class name, of course. I can add it immediately. That will work fine. All right. And here we will render options. Options will be an array of another type, which I'll call dropdown option. And it will be basically a value that's necessary. And the value would be any. Actually, no, let's not have any value. No, any is fine. Even if you want to pass an object, I don't care. That's fine. Whatever value. Label will be, the value will usually be string or integer, number, or whatever. But why would the dropdown not support any value? That's fine. And label will be string. And that's it for now. So this will be an array of dropdown options. Sorry. All right. So I can map through these now. Props options. Map, yeah. And for each option, I will render a button, which will have a class name, panel button. All right. And that button will have option label. And yeah, the value will be an on-click event base. So this is the markup of the dropdown. Actually see it. Let's create a story. There we go. I will import dropdown. Yeah, let's add all of the boilerplate. I will include it in navigation for now. It will have a different category maybe, but I don't remember the categories. I'll reorder that later. So children, let's have just a string for now. As I mentioned, children are inside the button, so open dropdown is okay. Oh, I just saw it. I named it JSX. It needs to be a TSX file, of course. Let me rerun storybook. Now the import is working correctly. Yeah, that's hard to spot. All right, and we have the drop-down item. Let's see what's wrong now. Arguments. We need options. Let's add some options here. So I'll add a couple. Label option 1, value 1. And I'll copy that 3 times just to have some data to work with in order to first style it and then make it work. We have an error here. We don't have the SAS file. Build it. Create it actually. Okay, that's what we needed. Great. So let's start top to bottom. I will start with the button. Drop down button. Just reset the styles. Border none, background none, outline none. And compare it. Padding 0 and margin 0. And that's pretty much resets everything. I will add cursor pointer because this is an interactive item. Drop down more specific. And let's style the panel now. Panel. Let's check what styles it has. Basically, 20 pixels padding, a 12 pixel spacing or gap in column layout. Let's calculate the padding. Base font size is 14, so 0.429. The background color, I will convert these to CSS variables later. We have a border radius. It's 10, I don't need to check it. 714. And let me see, box shadow. Let's check what it is. 2320, 15%. All right, let's check it out. I'll close these books. Great. Now the layout. We need it to be a flex column layout. Great. With a gap of 1 rem. Awesome. That's pretty much it. Let's now work on the options. So they are 16 pixels semi-bold laid to textual items with a border at the bottom and for oh, this is 12 pixels. So not 1 rem. 0.857 rem. There we go. Let's do the buttons. Okay. Actually, no, border is not known. Padding 0, outline 0, margin 0. Background none. Padding 857 at the bottom. This is oops. So top, right, and bottom 0.857, and the border none, and then I'll do border bottom to reset all the border styles, and then only add border bottom, which is 1 pixels solid, black with 20% opacity. And that's RGBA 0.2. Great. Let me check. What do we have? What else do we have? The typography, actually, which is a font size 16. 3 rems. Font weight is what? Semi-bold, which is 600 in Lato. 500 is medium. 400 is regular, of course. And we have a color. That is the link color. Okay. Let's check what we have right now. Pretty much what we need. Cursor pointer. And we need a hover color. We need a hover color. Indeed. I will also remove the gap and add padding top here because it will be much better. The area above will be clickable. The only thing I need to take into account are following details. We don't need padding on the first item. So not first of type. Okay. And all items have padding bottom, right? Okay. And not last of type has a border. Okay. Let's see. And not last of type also has padding bottom. All right. That's actually awesome. And now we need the hover color, which I'll take from button. Same colors basically. Okay, we need transition here. On color. Okay. And we need active, which will be again reset to the other color so that we have the pulsing effect sort of when we click. And when we focus on option, I want an outline, which will be 2 pixels solid, but I think I can use alpha 0.5. Can I? Okay. Let's just use the color picker to get RGB values. 0.97202. Okay. Not working for some reason. Let me see. Why is that? Oh, outline, focus. Yeah, the first item is a problem. Second and third are kind of okay. I need outline offset. That work? Do we have multiple values here for outline offset? Doesn't seem like it. It's not really cool. Yeah, I don't like that effect at all. I have another option, which will be better. I will define the padding here and just subtract padding of the panel button from the overall padding of the panel from top. So that would mean 1.429 minus 0.857. So top and bottom should be 0.572. And now I can have a proper focus state. That's much better, opinion. Much, much better. I would actually even go as far as to... No, that's okay. All right. Next thing, I want a min width on the panel, which will be the equivalent of 200 pixels in rems. Just 14 point is fine. Okay, that will be the min width. And now let's do some flex layout. Align items should be flex start, I believe. Check. That is the correct axis. Yeah, flex start. The buttons should have width 100% so that they stretch completely. All right. Actually, not here that we should have a flex layout. We need display flex here and justify content flex start. Okay, that's better. Align items should be center, although that wouldn't be reflected right now to avoid any future issues. Okay. And that's pretty much the layout of the dropdown. In addition, we need to make it panel itself absolutely positioned. And to do that, the dropdown will become a relative container. Position relative container to contain the... so that we can anchor the dropdown position to it. Open the other view. Position absolute. Let's do top 0 for now. Left 0. Okay. Top should be, of course, 100%. And I'll do margin top 1 rem, for example. Yeah, that's appropriate in my opinion. So this is how the dropdown will be positioned always. Now we need to hide it, actually. And I will add a modifier to it. Is open. Actually, fire will be to the dropdown. The dropdown is open. As an isOpen modifier. The dropdown panel inside of it will be display flex. Otherwise, so now let's implement the logic. We need state basically. I'll import use state, the hook. So I'll make a state variable is open, false by default, of course. And on this button click, we'll toggle. Let's see, not working. Oh, we don't have the logic behind it. I'll import TOSX to build the class names. So here we'll concatenate dropdown with is open would mean is open modifier. All right, there we go. That's great. So now a couple of other things. When we click an option, we need to close it. So first, let's do an option click. So on click, I'll add an option click handler, which will include whatever now. So on click, we'll call that with an argument being the option, because we have the value here. And actually, right now, we'll just set is open false. Option will be drop down option, of course. All right, so that works well. Now, in addition, we need to set an active state here. So some option will be active from the beginning. I will add this to the drop-down option. This, all of these are required. Add it in the storybook. We'll make the first one active and the other ones inactive. There we go. Now let's add the class here. I'll collapse this to multiple lines so that it's more readable. All right. Well, here we check option is active. And in that case, we'll add a modifier again. And that modifier will be drop-down panel. Button is active. Okay. And let's add styles to that. Is active would mean color black, pointer events none. Okay, great. Actually quite awesome, if you ask me. See the design. Yeah, we are closely following that. Font is a little bit bolder, but that's just how it renders. So besides that, we have the active state. We need to change the active state on click and fire an onChange event. To do that, we'll copy the options to a state variable. So this will be a semi-controlled imp, meaning it will have internal state and fire onChange events to notify parent components that the state changed. Which means that here where we use props options, only here I believe, yeah, we should use options now. And when we click on the option click handler, we will set options to, let's just build an updated options array. We'll map through all options. There we go. And do the following. If option is equal to selected option, we will return option, the option, and send is active to true. All right. Otherwise, we'll return the option and disable activity. It's normal. I think that logic is pretty solid. Now we will set options to updated options. That will happen after we hide the input. And then if we have props onChange, that is a function, we will fire it with the updated options. Now here we need to find that. Okay. Yeah, that type of check, not really scary. Let me see. Why not? Should exist. Oh, not here, but right here. It's optional. Okay. Well, let's check first if it works. Okay, the internal state works. The option we select becomes active. Now let's check onChange handler. Just a simple console walk. And I'll output the option. Okay. Oh, that should be in arcs. Export this type. There we go. And I'll use it here. There we go. That's great. Let's open the inspector. And we have an option change event. And we get the updated option. That's pretty good. I return all options, not just the dated one. You can just filter immediately after that. Well, the last steps, this is working well now. The other things I want to implement is an escape click and click outside of the box. Now, an escape click, interesting. It will be an effect. Use effect, and that effect will be quite simple. Let me see. Key down. I always reference this Stack Overflow question because I forget the event key check. There it is. If event key. Basically, we need to add an event. Let me comment out. I need that for reference. We need to add an event listener to the document on key down. I will add a function called key down event handler. We have an event keyboard event type that will check the following. If event key is equal to escape, it will close the dropdown. Awesome. And that key down event handler will be added here, and we need to clean it up on return so that when the component unmounts, the document event listeners will be removed. And to do that, copy this line. Okay, let's test. Works flawlessly. And now we also need an outside click. I'll add it in the same effect. Here we need dependencies. The dependency is set open. Okay. I will add the document event listener for click. Okay. There we go. And again, remove it. Now here on click, we need to check if event target is included in the dropdown element. To do that, we need a ref to the element. So we'll use the useRef hook, dropdown ref, which will be a React mutable ref object of type HTML div element or no. Yeah, that's the type. And useRef no. Okay. And here we attach it using ref, the ref attribute. So here we'll check if dropdown ref current is not defined or not yet attached, we'll just return. Otherwise, we'll check here if dropdown ref current, I believe includes, let me check, if it contains the event target. In that case, let me think. So if it contains it, that means we clicked inside the element. So return in that case. Otherwise, set is open to false. Otherwise, close. So let's test now. We click inside, no problem. If we click outside, closes. Great. Works flawlessly, to be honest. Now, the focus changes perfectly. Great. So this is pretty much the dropdown done. We have effect for accessibility, this panel. Now I also want to build component for this specific layout, this presentational component, which I'll call a months switch. ESX, I will again copy the pagination component because it's very simple. And here we'll just have a stylus file, some props, basic props. I actually don't know if I'll have props, honestly. I don't expect I will. So let's remove them until I need them. This is a very presentational component. No, I will have props, children at least. So here we'll work with spans as everything will go inside of a button and div is not valid. I will use on switch class name according to BEM and props children. We'll include two icons. So let me import icon types. So icon will be of type calendar. I really like that IntelliSense. Awesome. And another icon, which will be of type chevron down. Right. Check it out. Check it out. I need stories. All right. I'll include it in the navigation category for now. I will reorder the categories off camera because I need to, think carefully about them. And now the children, for now, the children will be a text note, and usually they will indicate the current month. So I'll just do January 2024, and pretty much what I need for now. Let's open that. What's wrong? We have an error here. Oh yeah, the SAS file is not created. I always forget that. Here we go. That's actually the expected thing to have right now with the markup. So let's check the first icon. I want class names to all of these. Calendar icon is a terrible name. Left icon. That's fine. Better. Yeah. Left icon. 23 by 25. So 23, 14. And the height. All right. And the fill is preset already. I will call it chevron because it rotates. I have specific styles for a chevron. Chevron. Great. And that will have what exactly? 7. And the fill. The fill here will be current color. Awesome. We'll also set font size. That's 1.5 rems. And bold is awesome. Now let's make this lex. What's the gap? 13. 9 to 9. Check. Oh, why is that not working? Let me see. That's unusual. On switch. Check the class name. Okay, that's interesting now. Let me troubleshoot. We have display flex. Oh, y direction column. Row, of course. Awesome. And align items center. Center vertically the items in. Now let's add a hover style. Hover style will be what? Take it from the button. There it is. Hover color. We also need an active style, which will change back to the normal color. I will transition color. I will add cursor pointer to that as well, because even though we have it on the parent. All right. And let's add focus style. Actually, yeah, let's add a focus style. That focus style will be, no, you won't focus that. You will focus the parent element. Okay. Great. What else do I want to do? That's pretty much it. Let's add it to the drop-down stories to test it. Oh. And how are we going to add it? Children. Text now. Which will be just once switch. There you go. Let's test. Well, works perfectly fine. We have accessibility, outside clicks work, focus works, pretty much as expected. And I needed that to create this drop-down component. So far, I think we have most of our components. Charts we don't. We'll use charts.js or another library, still not sure, but pretty confident I'll use charts.js for that. And yeah, I think we're ready to start assembling the web client. With this, I'll wrap today's video. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when another video in this series is released. Take care.